cards for Star Wars Destiny. Today I wanted to look at the red villain, rares, and legendaries, give you my takes on them, and then give you some ideas, at least with the characters, for some interesting deck builds. So we'll start out with the first card, which is Death Trooper. Death Trooper's got 10 health, just a generic ability with a 10 cost, but he's got 4 range damage sides, only one of which is modified. Pretty sweet character. You got 2 damage faces, so that's pretty good for rolling and taking the battlefield. You can fit 3 of these guys on one team. The big problem you might notice with them is they don't have any resources, so you're really banking on those 2 resources you get each round. There is a lot of new ways to get resources in the new set. There's a lot of supports that you can get resources with, so using that to compensate the trooper's lack of resources might not be a bad idea. So I've seen a lot of people running 3 Death Troopers on Tabletop Simulator. So Death Squad, you got 3 Death Troopers. You could roll them all in with squad tactics, and you can do a lot of fun things when you have that much range damage. So it's a pretty generic character, but it's a pretty nice dice, and a pretty good start to a new set. So the next character we're going to talk about is FN2199, everyone's favorite trooper from The Force Awakens. So he's got 11 health, a little bit more for 10 cost, so he's a little bit higher in survivability than that Death Trooper just with 1 dice. He does have split damage, so he's got 1 range die and then 2 melee die faces, one of which costs a resource. A shield, then he comes with the resource. The real key to this character is his ability. It says after you play a weapon on this character, roll that weapon die. If able, you may immediately resolve it. So you can play a holdout blaster on him, roll it, and resolve it. Then you get another action. You could activate him and throw his dice and that holdout blaster out there with him. I've seen a lot of decks where people are chaining weapons on top of FN2199 to keep rolling dice into the field, and that's a legit deck type. I wouldn't dismiss it. The one thing I'll warn you about is when you start playing with that and continually discarding weapons to replace them on FN2199. If you start to get behind, it's pretty easy to do. You can get behind in upgrades because you're constantly replacing yours instead of building them up across your characters. So, I honestly think, I've seen a lot of people try to play him with Vader, and a couple people try to play him with IG-88, but I think he is the new partner for Jango Fett in 2 elite character aggro decks. So you can run Elite FN2199 and Elite Jango Fett. They do have kind of mixed damage types on both dice. Both of them have 3 faces that deal damage. None of them are modified. 1 cost a resource. And you got 3 resource faces to go along with that. So you're only at 21 health, but I think he's sort of the new partner instead of Veers that partners with Jango really well. So I definitely encourage people to try that out. Not that I want to see more Jango out there in the meta, but I think it'll be a pretty strong deck. Another deck that I thought of, I didn't actually grab an image for it yet, is using FN2199 as regular, so just the 10 cost, an Elite Battletic, and then a Royal Guard. I'll have to Photoshop that in there later or something. Actually, I think I have a Royal Guard right here. Scan that in later. But yeah, using him with the Royal Guard, so you've now got some protection. You've got 2 characters with melee, 2 characters with ranged. And the big advantage to this is a lot of the red weapon upgrades we see are guns, and those guns aren't super useful when you have a lot of dice with melee faces. I've seen some people try to fit FN with 2 Royal Guards and things like that. But when you can get those guns and move them to Balatique with redeploy or things like that, or play them on Bala, and that keeps FN free of damage because people will have to target him pretty quickly. It also gives you tricolor, so you get to include any weapon you want, from a lightsaber to a flamethrower, all the way to the classic Stormtrooper rifle that we got in the original core sets. So lots of good things to be had. You can still get 4 dice, which is amazing, and you get 16. I think the Royal Guard is 8, so 16 plus 11, 27 health. So you're sitting pretty happy on health with this setup. Next character we'll talk about is Director Krennic. Director Krennic has 3 2-value faces. One thing that's interesting about him is he does not have a repeated symbol on his die faces. So he's got a ranged, he's got a focus, he's got a disrupt, he's got a discard, and he's got a resource. He comes in at 12 health and he's a 15 or 19. He says, after you activate this character, if you control the battlefield, roll a Death Trooper die into your pool. Set that die aside after it's resolved or removed. So you can get a free Death Trooper die rolled into your pool each turn, as long as you control the battlefield. Because of this, I think he fits into 2 characters decks the best. I've seen some people say, well, here's the Death Trooper you get for free. You remember him from earlier, but I've seen some people try to run him with a Death Trooper. So mono red, but a lot of ranged. I've seen some people suggest here's your free Death Trooper, but also running him with a regular version of Jabba. So you can either do Elite Krennic and single Jabba, or you can do regular Krennic and Elite Jabba. The cool thing here is all your character dice, minus your free Death Trooper, have Disrupt and Discard sides, and both of those are 2s. And that can be super powerful. If you've looked at the Go Rogue article series, you've seen that the Night Sisters in Jabba, just 2 Night Sisters in Jabba, having all that Disrupt and Discard can be super powerful, especially with all the focus you get. The one thing that seems kind of out of place with this build for me is the Death Trooper. He doesn't really add to Jabba at all. He adds to Krennic a little bit, but usually with this kind of setup, I'm not really trying to be aggressive with these Death Troopers, so it didn't seem to fit much. Instead, we go to one of my favorite characters from Awakenings, Bala. So you can run Elite Director Krennic with Elite Bala, and then you effectively have 5 character dice when you're rolling in your Death Trooper each turn. You're still really only rolling 2 characters you're going to activate, so you're going to claim a lot and hopefully have the battlefield for those Death Troopers. And it just gives you access to a lot of the new yellow cards that really can enhance your deck. So this is kind of the replacement for what used to be what I called Ticked Off Grievous, where you ran Elite Balatik and Elite General Grievous. Now you can do the same thing with Director Krennic, but not have mixed damage types. So this could be really powerful, and at the same time you'll be super susceptible to things like dodge and deflect. So the last character we're going to look at is the TIE Pilot. He comes in at 7 health, and he's a little interesting. He's only got modified ranged damage sides, and then a focus, a resource, and a blank. He says, this is the interesting part for him, a lot of cool abilities with these characters. While this die is in your pool, your other remaining dice showing ranged damage cannot be removed by an opponent. So all you have to do is get him out there, and your other ranged damage dice are completely safe. So I've come up with a couple decks that I like with this. I've seen a lot of people running, 2 TIE Pilots, which comes to 60, and 2 Stormtroopers, and things like that. But I really think getting some mono color in here is good. And I think one of the overlooked cards from Awakenings is Night Sisters. That action, the Disrupt and Discard can be really powerful even in these aggro-y decks. So I have this one deck that I still want to try out called Sisters and Sister and Misters. So 1 Night Sister, and an Elite FN 2199, and then a single TIE Pilot. So you're protecting a ton of your range damage. You can throw all those ranged weapons on FN and have them protected from being removed. Just seems like it would be a fun deck that you can get 4 dice out of and try to protect them a little bit with the TIE Pilot. Another one that I was looking at, and this one's probably a little more dangerous, is the TIE Pilot with an Elite General Veers and our Enforcer from Yellow that we'll look at in a couple of videos. One cool thing is we're getting a Slave 1, so we can now use Veers with things other than TIE Fighters and ATSTs, which could be really exciting. The thing that scares me about this team a little bit, you still get your 4 dice, but you're now looking at, 7 of your 15 die faces that aren't blanks are modifiers. And that can be a little bit rough. You don't have access to Awakenings like the light side does. The cool thing is you have 9 die faces that are range damage. That's 9 die faces that TIE Pilot can protect. So I think this could be a pretty fun build. I don't know if this one would necessarily be a super competitive build, but it'd be fun to try out. So we've got 4 more red villain legendary or rare cards. We'll look through them really quickly, but I don't have a lot of deck options. I could just give you my opinions on them. So the first is a 3-cost support, the E-Web Emplacement. It's got 4 sides that show range damage, 2 of them that cost a resource. I'm really not a fan of the 1 range damage for 1 resource side on this die. It does have an interesting ability. While you control the battlefield, the value of each die or of each of the die sides for this die is increased by 1. So all those 1s become a 2, the 2s become a 3, which is really powerful. The problem I have with it is if you're running supports, you're probably not going to be controlling the battlefield a whole ton, especially if you're running red with supports, because you're probably running Drudge Work or you're running something with a ton of characters out there with a ton of activations. So I think this might actually be something that fits better into a deck that is, a little bit aggressive and still sneaks it in somehow, or fits into, not a mono red sort of several character deck. So it's still an interesting card. It'll offer us some new choices. There's a lot more support for supports in this set, so it could see some play. This next card is the card that I think will see a lot of play in red decks, and it's called Imperial Discipline. So red characters only, villains only, so it's not like promotion as a 1-cost upgrade. Anytime I see an upgrade that only costs 1 and is an ability, so it can't be stolen, I know it has to be something that's worth considering to put in your deck just to ramp up to better upgrades. Anyway, we have a +1 ranged and a +1 melee, just like promotion, and then a shield and 2 resource faces, one of which is a modifier. But the key here is the action. So you can remove this dice to turn one of this character's character or upgrade dice to a side showing range damage or resource. So you can turn your regular stormtroopers to their 2 range damage just by removing this die. You can really set up some big combos or set yourself up to protect dice with things like TIE Pilot. So I think this card is going to be a staple in red ranged character decks. So look out for this one when you're finally opening your packs. The next one is another weapon, so it's always good to get more weapons, both for FN and just in general. Weapon choices are great. It's a 2-cost weapon, DT-29 Heavy Blaster Pistol. Not sure what I think about this one yet. It's got 3 ranged faces, which are great, but 2 are modifiers. It's got a shield and it's got a special ability. It seems kind of underclassed by other ranged weapons that we've seen before. Yeah, you can use the special, but the special is very, very limited. I mean, you remove an opponent's die showing a resource cost. That's good, because if it has a resource cost, a lot of times they have to hunt for the resource to pay for it. But at the same time, if it has a resource cost, there's a good chance they just won't be able to play it. So there's not a huge advantage from that special. So I kind of, like the neutral red guns that we see in Awakenings and the Stormtrooper rifle that we see in Awakenings a little bit better than this guy. But it's good to have another choice. It's great to be able to have 4 2-cost guns in your deck that aren't just holdout blasters. So could be a useful upgrade. And then we have a legendary card. So we have the Z6 Riot Control Baton. This is FN2199 specialty. So it's got 4 faces and then 2 blanks. Not crazy about the 2 blanks, but it does have a lot of advantages. So first let's talk about the disadvantages, I guess. It's got 2 blanks. It costs 3. One of those faces that isn't blank costs a resource, which kind of stinks. So, alright, we're done with the negatives. Let's talk about the great things it has. It's got 3 damage faces, minimum of which is 2. That's great. It's got a 3-for-1 face, which is equivalent to any of the lightsabers we've seen before. What's really cool about this legendary is it has redeploy. Redeploy is so powerful in this game, especially when you have several characters. So if you can get this on someone, I don't want to say it deters your opponent from targeting them. They're probably still a powerful character, but if they do destroy them, there's a chance you get to use it twice in one round and all sorts of other great stuff. It also costs 3, so if you're doing some kind of melee deck with FN, you can replace it with a lightsaber without paying for anything, because they all cost 3, which is nice. So the other part of the ability here is after you roll this die into your pool, you may re-roll it. I haven't seen a ruling on how this works. I'm assuming that it means once you roll it into your pool, so it doesn't leave your pool and re-enter it when you're doing a re-roll. So I think this will only trigger on the first time you roll it in, not when you discard to re-roll. But when you roll it in, you get a chance to re-roll it. So it kind of mitigates the 2 blanks and the 3-for-1 side, but not entirely amazingly. It does work really well with FN2199, and I'm pretty excited about that, just theme-wise. So I think with that, we've gone through all of the red rares and legendaries in the upcoming SoR set. So I'll try to record some videos to get through all the rares and legendaries before the set comes out, and then eventually we'll get to the commons and uncommons for each faction and the neutrals. So thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you guys again.